and welcome to this video that is on sampling design and the procedure. So I'm Professor Rashmi Singh. So today we will discuss about the sampling design and the procedures. Now the question is, what do you understand by the sampling? The sampling in a research, most of the time you heard about the term sampling. Do you know what is the concept of this sampling? Sampling, if I talk about sample you can say is a part of population. Population means the whole lot, means for which do you want to perform your research. But it is impossible to have all the elements in the population because you have a limited time, because you have a limited cost, or the resources, you have a limited resources, you can say. So sampling, in that case, sampling plays a very important role. Sampling is the process of collecting samples from the population. Okay, so as per the definition, if I tell you, it is a process of obtaining information from a subset or sample of a large group population. Means sampling is a process of collecting information or collecting some units from your larger group, which is called population. The results for the sample are then used to make estimates for the larger group. Means you will perform, when you select some sample, when you collect some elements, when you collect some units from your population, you will perform some research on that particular smaller group of population, smaller group that you have taken from your population, and you will perform your research, and whatever findings will come, you will make the estimation for your larger group. It is a very faster and cheaper than asking the entire population. Obviously, I have already discussed this point that it is a very faster and cheaper in nature, because you have to, instead of collecting information or the data for the 2000 people, it will be very easy to collect data from 200 people. So, but when you perform sampling in order to conduct any research, there are two key things that any researcher should keep in mind. First is selecting the right people, and second is selecting the right number of right people. Means, as per the objective of your research, it is very important to select the right consumers, or not consumers, right respondent, or the right people. Suppose you want to conduct some study on the children or the adolescent, it should be considered, it should be kept in mind that adolescent means the consumers or the individuals who are below 18 years are considered as adolescents. So you cannot, in your sampling, you cannot consider the individual who are above 18 years. So the one of the key things that a researcher should kept in mind is the selecting the right people. Second is selecting the right number of the right people. Means that depends on your sample size. Means as per the objective, everything depends on your objective and the type of variable you have taken. As per the objective of your study, as per the variables you have taken for your study, you have to decide that right number, means right sample size. Adequate sample size you should have in order to perform some analysis, or in order to perform some research. Sample containing a portion of population, that is 10% or 25%. Best with a very large population, small n. Okay, easiest with the homogeneous. What do you understand by homogeneous population then? Homogeneity means similarity, you can say. But what is census? Census is performed on the entire population. The most useful when population is small or the cost of making an error is high. See, under what situation you will perform the sample, under what situation you will perform the census. So researchers generally perform sample when you have a very large population, and your work will be done by collecting data from only 10% or the 25% of your population. When you have a very large capital N, means population size is very large. Easiest with the homogeneous population. When there is a lot of homogeneity in your population, then it will be easy for you to collect data. Census is conducted means you will collect data from your entire population, and it is most useful when your population is small. When in your population you have only 200 elements, it means that population is very small, so there is no requirement of conducting and sampling. But also one thing that a researcher should keep in mind, that cost of making an error is high. When in sampling there is a cost of making an error is high, then in that case you will perform an census survey, or you can say you will collect data from your entire population. Okay, now come to the next slide. This is the, you can say, conditions favoring the use of sample and the conditions favoring the use of census. So in terms of budget, when you perform sample survey, your budget, you will have a small budget, or when your study have a small budget, you will go for sample survey. When you have a large budget, you will go for the census survey. Second is time available, means for the sample, when timing, or you can say when the time available is very less or short, you will go for sample. When you have a long time, then you can perform your census survey. Population size is very large, then you will perform sample survey. When population size is very small, you will perform this census survey. Variance in the characteristics means when there is a homogeneity, variance in characteristics means the homogeneity. When the homogeneity is very small or very less or no heterogeneity, then not sorry. The variance in the characteristic means when the heterogeneity is very small. When the heterogeneity is very small means the sample or the respondents or the units in this population are very homogeneous in nature. When there is a homogeneity, you will perform sample analysis. When there is a heterogeneity, you will perform the census survey. Cost of sampling error. When the chances of sampling error is high, then you will go for census survey. When the chances of sampling error is low, you will perform the sample analysis. Cost of non-sampling errors. There are two different types of errors: sampling errors and non-sampling errors, that we have already discussed. So cost of non-sampling error is, when non-sampling error is high, then you will go for this sample survey. When this cost of non-sampling error is low, then you will perform this census survey. Nature of the measurement, which is destructive and non-destructive. Let's consider an example, like in the case of blood testing. When you are performing some blood test, or in the blood testing, what is done? The patient, means at the time of blood testing, you are giving a small amount of blood to the doctor or to the lab technician. So that is destructive. What will happen if all of your blood will taken for your blood test? So that will be destructive in nature. So in case of destructive, you will consider sample survey. When it is non-destructive in nature, you will go for the census survey. Okay, this is. So attention to individual cases. Yes, in case of sample survey, you will have attention to individual cases because your sample is very small in nature. But in case of census survey, you cannot pay attention to individual cases. So these are the situations, or these are the conditions which are favoring the use of your sample and use of your census. That is based on the type of study, which is based on budget, time available, population size, variance in the characteristic, cost of sampling errors, cost of non-sampling errors, nature of measurement, and attention to individual cases. Clear? Now come to the next slide. Whatever sampling process you are performing, or whatever sample you have selected, it should be the true representation of your population. Means here we can see that this sample is a very bad sample. Why? Because a small portion of the sample is representing your population, while the rest of this part, if we consider this part, they are if we consider this part, they are not, you cannot say that this is actually representing your population. So this is a very bad sample, and your sample should be the true representation of your population. It means that if you are selecting sample, then it should be like this. You will collect sample, it should be like this. Okay, clear? Now this is also a very bad sample. Both are mutually exclusive, you can say. Mutually exclusive means no element is common in sample and the population. Every time when you select sample, it should be from like this, it should be like this, it should be like this. Here, not like this. Now come to this. What are the characteristics of the good samples? There are certain characteristics which every researcher should keep in mind while selecting some sample. That is, your sample should be the representative of your population. Your sample should be accessible and it should be of low cost. What do you understand by the representative? Your sample should be representative. What does it represent? Representative means if in a population the ratio of boys versus girls, let's say it is 3:2, then in that case, in your sample also that ratio should persist. Then you will say it is a good representative. Or in suppose in your population, the difference, you can say, there is a high income group people and the low income group people, and the ratio of them is 1:2. And if you are performing, if your objective is based on this income group, consumers income group, so when you select sample, then it should also have that ratio, means 3:2 or 1:2, that is available in, that is present in your population. It should be in the sample also. Second is, your sample should be accessible in nature. Means what does it mean? Accessibility means you should easily collect your data from your sample. If I say you are collecting your data or you are sampling for the Al Qaeda, means you will not get the data from that sample. Of you, if you are performing some study on something which is not accessible to you, so that will not represent a good sample. And also the we always know that the research is very parsimonious in nature. Means parsimony means less resources. It involves very less resources. So in that case, if you have a low cost, it means whatever sampling you are performing, it should have a very low cost. Based on very low cost, then it will be representing a good sample. There are few terminology that every researcher should understand. First is population, the entire group of people of interest from whom the researcher needs to obtain information. Okay, so population is the entire group of people on which you have to perform some research as per your objective. Element or the sampling unit, one unit from the population. Each element in the, or each unit, or you can say each respondent. Suppose in a classroom, if I say it's a population, then each student is considered as an element. Okay, or if in a university, if I say the different courses that are running, you can say the different courses and the student in each specialization are considered as the element or the sampling unit. Then sampling, the selection, sampling is a process actually, and the collecting some sample from your population. Sampling frame is nothing. In a very layman language, if I say sampling frame is simply listing of population. You will do the listing of each element in the population. Means you will simply write a name, just like a telephone directory. Telephone directory is an example of sampling frame. Census होता है basically the polling of the entire population, while the survey is considered as a polling of the sample. This is the sampling process, you can say. Sampling design or sample selection process. Firstly, you have to define your population, means on what population you want to perform your study. Second is define and determine sampling frame based on your population. Suppose you want to conduct some study on the adolescent. Adolescent means the young consumers or the youngsters who are less than 18 years. So in that case, all the individuals who are below 18 years are considered as your population. Now, second thing is determining sampling frame. You will write the name of each respondent, not respondent, each element of the population. Means you will write the some information about each adolescent who are below 18 years. Then determining the sampling procedure. When we are talking about the sampling procedure, there are two different types of sampling procedure. First is probability sampling and second is non-probability sampling. Uh, Also, the probability sampling basically includes this simple random sampling, the stratified sampling, and the cluster sampling. But the non-probability sampling is convenience sampling, judgmental sampling, and the quota sampling. There are other types of probability and non-probability samplings, but we will discuss it in the next video that I will make. And then on that, this is the overall sampling selection process. So then after that, you will determine the appropriate sample size, and then you will execute your sampling and sampling design. Now the question is, what do you understand by the target population? It addresses the question ideally, who do you want to survey? That is, those who have the information short. What are their characteristics? Who should be excluded? See, target population basically based on the objective of your research. Suppose you want to study about the pensioners in India, or the old men who are above 65 years old. So in that case, who will be your target population? Your target population, I said old. Old means those who are above 65 years. So all the individuals in India who are above 65 years will be your target population. Means to whom you should. And I said in my objective that all men above 65 years, it means in my target population, I will not consider the women above 65 years. I am only considering the old men who are above 65 years. So target population is totally based on the objective of your research. Means in your objective, on which sample or on which group of people you want to perform your study. So what are their characteristics that should be included or excluded? Like I said, age. So above 65 year will be your gender. All men, I said, in the same way, type of product they are used, or those who is in industry. In terms of geographical area, if I say I want to conduct some study, all the old men who are above 65 years and who are living in eastern part of India, like in Odisha or in West Bengal. So that is my target population. It involves defining population units, setting population boundaries, and the screening. The same thing, like element, it is the object from which information is desired. I have already discussed. You can say the families, sampling units, families with 2 kids, then student doing groups doing MR, and the timing, it is a time period under consideration. Okay. Now, determination of sampling frame. What do you understand by sampling frame? I have already discussed. Obtaining a list of population, how will you reach your sample? Let's say make a list of students who eat McDonald's, young people at random in the street, or phone book, student union listing, university mailing list. That is the sampling frame. Problems with list, omission, ineligibles, and the duplications. Now, the question is, what do you understand by this sampling design? There are two types of sampling design, non-probability sampling design and the probability sampling design. What is non-probability? Non-probability sampling design, that is not based on some probability. Means it is totally based on the researcher's objective, or you can say it's totally as per the researcher's view or uh, means there is not any equal probability of selection of some respondent. Means probability is not involved in such kind of, which is based totally based on the researcher's judgment, that is called non-probability sampling. While in case of probability sampling, there is a probability of selection of each and every unit in the population. So subjective procedure in which the probability of selecting for some population units are zero or unknown before drawing the sample. Means it is a subjective procedure. What are the advantages of conducting this non-probability sampling? That it is very cheaper and faster than the probability. Okay, probability sampling is generally costlier and very it takes time. But in case of non-probability, as it is based on the researcher's judgment, so you can say reasonably representative, collected in a thorough manner. If it is free from any kind of biasness or anything, then it is a very good, you can say it's a very good measure. So first type of sampling that comes under the non-probability sampling is the convenience sampling. Convenience sampling attempts to obtain a sample of convenient elements, means the elements which is conveniently available to the consumer, like the individual in a street, means or you are collecting data from your family members. As per the objective, if you want to conduct some study on adolescent or children, the children in your family, you can collect data. So they are conveniently available to you. So convenient sampling is basically mostly based on the convenience of the researcher. People in my class, male intercept, small intercept, sorry, and the people with some specific characteristic like bald. So conveniently, those who are very easily available, I will perform study on them. That is called my convenience sampling. Example, researcher could quickly find out what features most teenagers use on from their cell phone. Would be go to a local mall and survey the teens they find. Okay, researchers could analyze what brand of medications doctor prefer to prescribe to people over 65 by visiting doctor's office and collecting data from billing patients that fit the profile. Okay. Next type of sampling is the judgmental sampling. Again, this is a form of convenience sampling in which the population elements are selected based on the judgment of the researcher. Means on the basis of researcher's judgment, this convenience sampling is, this judgmental sampling is used. Convenience, those who are easily available. Who, there also the judgment of researcher is there, but judgment in terms of not you can say in terms of sample selection, but yes, more or less there is a researcher's judgment. But in case of judgmental sampling, researchers directly said that suppose in my class there are marketing student also, there are finance student also, and there are HR student also, and I have some project. So I want few students who can do well. So what I'll do, I'll select those students on the basis of my judgment. I will select students from finance also. I will select student from marketing also, because I know the finance student or that particular student will do good in finance. They will handle my project finance. Also, I'll select some one marketing student who will handle all the marketing part of my project. I will select one HR student because I need one HR guy who can handle the different emailers, or who can handle all the activities. So that is my judgment. On the basis of my judgment, those students who are good in marketing, the student who are good in finance, the student who are good in HR, I'll select that element, that student. In a study wherein a researcher wants to know what it takes to graduate in Sanskrit in college, the only people who can give the researcher first-hand advice are individuals who graduated in Sanskrit. I have already explained this. With this very specific and limited pool of individual, researchers must use the judgmental sampling. Okay. Third type of sampling is the snowball sampling. Snowball sampling is also known as the referral sampling. Means from the initial group of respondents, what you will do, they will give you some referrals. Suppose you want to conduct some study on, let's say, on marital conflict, the husband-wife conflict, or the parent-child conflict. So in such type of study, the snowball sampling is used. Suppose you go to one family and they will obviously tell you 10 other families that yes, there is a certain kind of husband-wife conflict, or there is a conflict between parent and the child. So in that means referral, one respondent will refer 2 or 3 samples also. Now you will go to that respondent, they will also refer 2 or 3 respondents. So that is a kind of referral. An initial group of respondents is selected, usually at random. After being interviewed, these respondents are asked to identify others who belong to the target population of interest. Subsequent respondents are selected based on the referrals. I have already explained this. If obtaining subjects for the study that wants to observe a rare disease, the researcher may opt to use snowball sampling since it will be difficult to obtain subjects. It is possible that the patient with same disease have a support group. Being able to observe one of the members as your initial subject will then lead you to more subjects for the study, like in the case of AIDS also. Okay, the snowball sampling plays a very important role. Fourth type of sampling that you should know, which is known as the quota sampling. Quota sampling is nothing but a two-stage judgmental sampling. In quota sampling, firstly you will make different quotas. Quotas means you will, in a very simple language, if I say, you will make different groups based on the objective of your study. Based on the objective as well as the researcher's judgment, you will make different quotas, and then from each quota you will select some sample as per the judgment, researcher's judgment. So that is two-stage judgmental. Means two-stage restricted judgmental means at the first stage the researcher's judgment is used to make different quotas are grouped. Second stage judgmental is used at the time of selecting individuals or the respondents from the different groups, from the two groups that you have made or different quotas that you have made. Okay, so that is called the, so here this is quota sampling is also a non-probability sampling, and you will firstly you will make different quotas as per the researcher's judgment, then you will select sample from each quota again as per the researcher's judgment. Clear? In a study wherein researcher likes to compare the academic performance of different high school uh, class levels, its relationship with gender and socioeconomic status, the researcher first identifies the subgroups. I have already discussed this. Usually the subgroups are the characteristic or variable of the study. The researcher divides the entire population into class level, intersected with the gender, socioeconomic means as per the objective and as per the researcher's judgment. Then it takes a note of the proportions of this entire population and then samples of each subgroup accordingly. Yeah. Now, in the next lecture, we will discuss about this probability sampling and the different types of probability sampling. Friends, I hope you like my video. So thank you so much.